Hello, hello. All right, I'm just gonna get started. Good morning, Christina. And then I will just kind of let people join in as they please. So my name is Analies, and I am Hydroviv's head of policy and perspectives. And today we are talking about something that we have addressed previously a bunch on our Instagram and on our blogs. So you may already be familiar with PFAS, but today's live is really going to be an in-depth exploration as to why these are so dangerous and specifically how they contaminate drinking water, both tap water and well water. So let's just kind of start out with what are PFAS. So PFAS, or per or polyfluoroalkyl substances, also frequently referred to as forever chemicals. They are a category of emerging contaminants that have been found in drinking water across the country in recent years. So you may be familiar with Gen X, PFOA, and PFOS. Those are kind of the three most common variations of PFAS, but they all fall under that broad umbrella of PFAS. So there can be a lot of different variations. Some scientists are suggesting that there might be upwards of 4,000 different types of PFAS. And we're really only focusing on 3 right now in like the regulatory space. So that's, just something to keep in mind. So, chemical manufacturing companies like DuPont, Chemours, and 3M are really the big 3 in terms of producing these PFAS chemicals. And they really do, unfortunately, serve a great purpose. So they're non-stick, they're stain resistant, they're really good at suppressing like fires. So, Scotchgard and Teflon PFAS have been used in those products. Firefighting foam is another big one, and other like stain resistant products, water repellent products, all of that. So they are really persistent in the environment, and that means that they do not do a great job of degrading over time when they're in the environment. So they can last hundreds of years without breaking down. So that's kind of PFAS in a nutshell, what they are. So moving on to like, how does this impact drinking water? Like, why should I actually care about PFAS and this whole category of contaminants? So there are really 2 ways that PFAS can enter drinking water. So the first is pretty straightforward, and that's just industrial waste. This is something that a lot of other contaminants enter drinking water this same exact way. So it's not out of the ordinary. So, a chemical manufacturer like DuPont, 3M, whoever it is, will allow wastewater with byproducts of PFAS into a water body, either directly through like a drainage pipe or direct discharge effluent, which again is totally common practice in industrial manufacturing, or indirectly through a leak or a spill, or if there's an injection well nearby a factory that has a leak. That's another really common way that PFAS and other contaminants can enter water. So it becomes problematic when these contaminated bodies of water are then used as the primary source of drinking water for a municipality. So this is also a common thing that we see with other contaminants. But, if you live on a river, or if you live near a river and your municipality draws water from that river and then treats it and then distributes it, we'll kind of get into that a little bit later, but that's when it becomes problematic to human health. So the second is a bit more nuanced. The second way that PFAS can enter drinking water. So earlier I mentioned that PFAS are an ingredient in firefighting foam. So military installments, airports, Air Force bases, they use really, really high quantities of firefighting foam during like training activities and things of that sort. So when that firefighting foam is kind of like left on the tarmac or not really properly cleaned up, it can then, after a major rain event, be washed away and enter a whole plethora of different sources. So it can enter groundwater just by infiltrating through the levels of soil. It can enter surface water if it's nearby, a river or a lake or a pond or whatever. So those are really the two most common ways that PFAS enter drinking water. And the military and Department of Defense thing is becoming a lot more prevalent just because there are so many military bases in the US, and not all, but a majority are facing the same problem of PFAS is getting into their well water, it's getting into their groundwater, and then people living on the bases, they're not on the public system, they're on the military's drinking water system. So that's when it really becomes problematic with firefighting foam. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but PFAS don't really degrade in the environment, and because of that, they can travel miles through groundwater, through surface water, and still maintain that high toxicity. I'm just going to look to see if we have any questions. I see a bunch of people joining here. All right, I think... Okay, how often do you recommend replacing the filter? Every 6 months. Okay. Continuing. Okay, so PFAS have been detected in a river that my municipality uses for source water. Cool. So you're probably wondering, shouldn't my utility that I pay for be removing this contaminant during the treatment process? No, unfortunately. So while that might be kind of an initial knee-jerk reaction that, oh, okay, of course my treatment facility is removing it, that's just simply not the case. And this is because PFAS are not regulated in drinking water. So that means that municipal water providers and treatment facilities and cities just aren't required to remove them because it's not regulated. The exception, of course, is if you live in a state where, PFAS are regulated, which there's only a handful. And these regulations are so new that they're not really even being implemented at the municipal level yet. So regulations take a really, really long time. And so that's one of the main reasons why they're still allowed in drinking water, is because EPA and Congress, they're kind of trying to figure out the quickest route to getting PFAS regulated, but it can take decades, unfortunately. So all of this, addition to the fact that PFAS are extremely difficult to remove at the municipal level, primarily because of their size. PFAS are measured in parts per trillion, so they're teeny, teeny, tiny. And almost all treatment facilities nationwide just don't have the necessary equipment or technology that can remove PFAS. And very few are willing to spend the money to purchase that equipment. And it's not the fault of municipal treatment facilities or towns or whoever. It's just the fact that the necessary equipment required to remove PFAS at the municipal level is so expensive. So just like one case study, for example, is the Sweeney Treatment Plant in Wilmington, North Carolina. So they have a huge problem with PFAS, particularly Gen X. And recently they invested a lot of money, $35 million, to purchase a piece of equipment that hopefully will remove PFAS. So that's just an increase in taxes. So it's hard to navigate at the municipal level for various reasons. Okay, so we've kind of done a little background, how it enters drinking water, why it's not being removed at the municipal level. So I'll just kind of touch on health effects. And we have articles that are already linked in our bio that go a little bit further in depth into these health effects, but I'll just kind of give a broad overview. So we know that PFAS are known to increase the risk of cancer. particularly kidney and testicular. Also known to lower fertility rates and cause developmental issues in infants and young children. And just recently, February of 2020, Yale did a study on PFAS and the association of miscarriage. And this research found that exposure to PFAS can actually increase the risk of miscarriage by 80 to 120%. So this is a statistic that is really, really serious. And we definitely want to broadcast that to all of our followers, that more research, more really, really damning research is coming out about PFAS. And so we just think it's important for everyone to know the full scope of how dangerous this chemical can be. So that's just kind of a really broad overview. Like I said, link in bio to get a more in-depth story about what the health effects are. And there's links to CDC and other resources that you can kind of dig through. So I'll wrap up by kind of just saying that the purpose of this Instagram Live is just really to make everyone aware that the regulation for PFAS is non-existent, and that we're really, really early on in discovering the best treatment methods at the municipal level, and that it's likely not going to happen for several years. So we just want to make sure that everyone is aware of these chemicals, and again, a bunch of resources in our link, or in the link in our bio. And I also wanted to point out that several water filtration devices, whether it be under sink, pitcher, fridge, aren't able to remove PFAS. So when you're thinking about purchasing a filter, you want to make sure that the brand or the company has sufficient third-party test data, and that you know that they are actually able to remove PFAS. I also linked a study that was done by Duke University in 2019, I believe. And basically the study tested a bunch of residential water filtration companies, of anywhere from, things that you can buy at Target and Walmart, pitcher filters of that nature, all the way up to, $1,000 reverse osmosis systems. So a really, really broad range of filters. And the results are very shocking. So I would definitely recommend checking that out in our bio. Some of the filters actually put PFAS back into the finished water. So it's important that you know that the filter that you're purchasing can remove it for not just 1 month, but a whole 6 months, or the whole time that it's actually rated to remove PFAS. You want to make sure that it's working and not releasing contaminants back into the finished water. So check out the links in our bio. A lot of really, really great information that can kind of help you navigate this pretty scary chemical. So yeah, let me just see any other questions. Oh, okay. Yeah, so pharmaceuticals, absolutely. Make sure that your filter removes them. Hydroviv filters do remove them. Hydroviv filters also remove PFAS. So that's another thing that you'll want to make sure that your filter has specs on. So yeah, I hope that this was helpful for everyone. It'll be saved on our Instagram Live, and we also have a podcast called Water Nerds that you should check out. You can get it wherever you download podcasts. So yeah, I hope that everyone found this interesting and informative, and I hope everyone has a good Wednesday. Bye.